The Norfolk Public Schools District's Board of Education meeting is being called to order. Roll call. Mr. McAllister.
Mrs. Goebbels,
Here.
Mrs. Carhart,
Present.
Mr. Stanton,
Here.
Mrs. Booth,
Here.
Mrs. Bauer,
Here.
Mr. McNally. We have 5 of 6 members present for a quorum.
Make a motion to excuse Steve McNally from the Norfolk Public Board of Education's meeting.
Second.
We have a motion by Terry and a second by Tom. Is there any other discussion? Please vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
This is a legal meeting of the Board of Education as advertised by the means specified in board policy. A complete copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the boardroom for your review. A copy of the agenda is available at the desk of the recording secretary. Please stand and join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, the next we have presentation and special recognition. Focus on the students. Mr. Burgess.
Good evening, members of the board and everyone in attendance. My name is Amanda Frito, and I am from the Norfolk Junior High School. I'm excited to share with you a bit about our communications production class, also known around our school as just CP. Communications production is made up of 2 classes with 26 different students, all of whom are outstanding, and I have the privilege of working with them through the entire school year. These students applied for the program as 7th graders and were carefully selected through a vetting process involving teachers, involving counselors, and involving their administrators. Our CP students are truly exceptional. They bring together organization, creativity, charisma, tech savviness, compassion, all qualities that make them the perfect ambassadors for Norfolk Junior High School. In many ways, they are the voice of our school community. Mr. Hughes, would you cue up our video?
I learned how to take photos properly. I learned how to make good social media posts. I learned how to use iMovie and how to upload videos. We learned how to edit videos properly and how to take pictures.
I've learned how to use iMovie and how to film really good.
We learned how to work with social media and be able to talk with other people in the school.
We produce almost all of the social media for the school.
We make JH News our school's news source, and we also make a lot of our social media posts.
We make JH News. We interview a variety of teachers and students and upload. We make segments for JH News like lunch and activities recap.
We interact with a variety of students and staff.
It gives me good communication skills and time management.
This benefits me because I'm learning to be able to socialize with others and to be able to understand everyone from their point of view.
It helps me get good communication skills and time management.
I think if I want to do social media in the future, knowing this will benefit.
It's helped me learn a variety of skills like time management and responsibility. It makes me learn how to talk to adults someday and how to do job interviews. Hi, Mimi, and welcome to week 11 of JAGE. On Tuesday, October 7th, you'll have macaroni and cheese, a pork fritter sandwich, or a combo sub with a side of peas. That's all for lunch this week. Bye!
This week's book is The Barren Ground. It's a middle grade fantasy book, and it follows two children called Morgan and Elle, and they are curious about their culture and they want to discover more.
I'm Kinley, and I'm here with Mr. Ott. Can I ask you a couple questions today?
You bet.
What's your favorite thing about teaching industrial technology?
I think my favorite thing is seeing how excited the students get when they come in. I think most of my students really enjoy coming in here.
Here's this week's activities recap. Congratulations to the 7th grade A volleyball team for their wins over Sioux City East. Norfolk.
Hey, London. I have a class to check out a book. Okay. Very good. You're all set. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Ethan Zimmerman, and I'm here with
Benny.
I'd like to ask you a few questions, Benny. What is one thing you want to get better at for the school year?
Probably like sports.
Obfuscate. It means to render something as unclear or unintelligible. Harper has a microphone. It's clear and obvious. Then she obfuscates it and hides it. Eventually, she reveals the microphone.
Okay, so we're going to have a few of our students from our classes of 26 speak to you guys about the things that we work on outside of just JH News and social media. You guys can come on.
I'm excited to share what we've started this year. We've already began two of our biggest projects, the yearbook and the year slideshow. These projects are all about capturing the school's memories and achievements.
Hi, I'm Riley, and earlier this year our class voted on a theme for the yearbook and we decided on Roblox. We wanted something fun, creative, and totally us. We're even adding a special spread to honor and maybe gently tease our teachers with the famous 6'7" trend that's been going around this year. I'll be doing the girls wrestling section.
I'll be doing the Joy and Student Council.
I'll be doing Red Ribbon Week and Spirit Week.
I'll be doing the 8th grade collage. And I'll be doing boys track.
Our end of the year slideshow is another tradition we're really proud of. Throughout the year, we take photos of our favorite moments from class projects to Spirit Days and the pep rally. And then we put them all together in Keynote and our Mac Mini. We add music, transitions, and even a few surprises. Then we use iMovie to finish everything off.
On the very last day of school, after we hand out and sign yearbooks, we show the slideshow to the entire student body. It's a chance to laugh, remember, and celebrate everything we've done together before saying goodbye and heading off to high school.
So in addition to JH News and social media, we're really excited to make this year's yearbook and slideshow the best one yet. Thank you for supporting our school and giving us opportunities to create and celebrate together. We are the voices of Norfolk Junior High School.
Sorry, I'm just jumping in because these students and the ones that you don't see here tonight as part of our communications strategic action plan was to get student content, and they have done an excellent job. So thank you, and thank you to Ms. Friedo, and it's just been going really well. So I wanted to chime in from the comm standpoint.
Before I do my little spiel, do you guys have any questions for these students? I know I'm putting on the spot here, but anything you guys, anything? Yes, Ms. Booth.
I noticed a couple of you in the presentation talked about how you had learned time management, which is just so important when you're going to graduate and get out into the workforce. How have you learned time management? Can you explain that a little bit more?
I'll give you the mic. There you go. Bring volunteer.
So for JH News, we have to get it done by a certain time. So that's just kind of like how, I guess, like we have 2 weeks to get our segments done for JH News.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
What was the most difficult thing for you to learn in terms of communication? And then what was the most fun that you had?
You got it.
The hardest thing with communications is probably not stuttering. As you can tell, I have a problem with that. I get like being really nervous in front of people, and the most fun thing is probably hanging out like with your peers and getting to know everybody.
Any other questions? When I say the junior high has some of the best teachers, I say it with everything in my heart. It's not smoke and mirrors. And I just want to thank Mrs. Friedo. We are beyond blessed to have her at the junior high leading our kids, and not only with our communications productions class, but with our STEM students as well. And I want to thank these awesome students for dedicating their time this evening to come and present to us, to the Board of Education, with you guys tonight. Anytime that I look at our JH News, and you guys can check it out every week, it's posted on our website. I'm just blown away by the content that they create and the creativity that these students have. And when I see them working on things in the hallway, or when I hop in the classroom and watch them create, they're laughing, they're having fun. Most of all, they're learning, and that's what it's all about. And I really appreciate the content that they post, especially on our social media pages. In a day and age where social media can be a little nasty, to put it nicely, it's refreshing to see all the positive things that these young students put on our social media pages for prospective families to come to Norfolk, prospective teachers and educators to move to Norfolk. So they have a very valuable part in what they do, and I'm just very impressed and so proud of what they do each week. And again, I thank you guys on a job well done.
Our next item is Award for Excellence. Mrs. Baumann.
Okay, so another positive and exciting thing on our agenda tonight is our Award for Excellence that we give out 5 times each school year. And tonight I would like to welcome up to the podium and the mic Tracy Shohan. Come on up so while I visit with her, she can stand up and be recognized. Tracy is one of our school psychologists here for Norfolk Public Schools. So Tracy was nominated by a variety of her peers, teachers, school administrators, all chimed in and had great things to say about Tracy. I'm going to let you hold this while I read a few of them. It's several pages long, so I highlighted a few that I will share, and I'll send the rest with her to review. But Lots of great statements here. Tracy is the calm in the storm, and she has a huge heart for people. People have worked with her for several years and have been consistently impressed by her dedication, expertise, and positive demeanor. She has a strong ability to build rapport with students and establish trust, and she is one of a kind. Her knowledge and expertise is a gift to the district. She is kind, patient, compassionate, and a problem solver. Tracy is someone I aspire to be someday. Watching her interact with students, staff, and parents is simply remarkable. So lots of great things. There's many more on here. I'll give you a copy of that as well to take with you. So we're very happy to be fully staffed with school psychologists this year and to have such strong school psychologists, and for Tracy to stand out amongst her peers and those she works with is very impressive. Tracy does get her plaque that I'm sure she's very happy to have. She will get a $50 gift card that Hy-Vee donates and sponsors our award each year. And then she does get $500 that she will work with her building principals or director to decide how she wants to use that to benefit the students of Norfolk Public Schools. So congratulations. Would anyone else like to speak? I kind of maybe knew that was going to happen.
Well, Ms. Shohan, congratulations. As a building principal, Ms. Shohan was our school psych that I worked with the most. And I always knew that any type of meeting that we had with a family, with any entities, we were going to be the most prepared. And your reports were second to none. And I truly enjoyed working with you all the years that I did. I loved our behind closed doors conversations because I asked you questions about the special education process, about testing in general. At the time, you made me a better principal, and not only that, but a better educator. So thank you. This is well deserved, and big time congratulations. Thanks, Ms. Shawn.
Would you like the mic? You don't have to.
I honestly I was blown away when I got this award, and I was sort of in denial at first. But I do want to say that I humbly accept this with humility for every educator that belongs up here. We have so many wonderful, wonderful educators in this district, and our kids prosper because of it. In education, you're either all in or you're not in at all. And we have a lot of educators that are all in, working toward that mission for NPS. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angie. Next item would be building visits. Building visits, I'll start. I visited Washington Elementary School, and I enjoyed speaking with the principal and the office staff and just getting their opinions on questions and just having a nice discussion for about an hour and 15 minutes that I was there. Anybody else?
I didn't do a school visit per se, but I did attend the Solution Tree Professional Development for a PLC and stayed for two of the, I think there were 4 objectives, if I remember correctly. The 2 that I was most interested in were the objective related to collaboration strategies, and also then data conversations. The collaboration I felt was very practical in terms of the information that was provided. You know, talked about that collaboration isn't just after a lesson, it really is occurring before and during instruction as well as afterward, which really just says that collaboration really becomes an integral way that you operate every day. And the other part of that that really stayed with me was that sometimes collaboration doesn't occur because of roadblocks. Roadblocks like seniority, where sometimes if you have a very seasoned teacher, other teachers kind of look to that person to always be leading and always be the expert. And though someone who has that kind of seniority really does have those things, it's important for leadership to be shared and to recognize that lots of fresh ideas come from people who don't have experience because they see the world differently. You know, they still sometimes have the idealism, which is important to bring in terms of collaboration and really just working together. You know, and another one of the roadblocks was just the idea of ego. And as I listened to that, I thought about the notion of ego orientation versus learning orientation. I guess I relate to that personally when I was working on my doctorate, that you really learned that if you tossed an idea out, that once you do that, it's not your possession anymore. And you can't take it personally if people attack it. You want people to attack the idea. You want them to share what could be better about that idea. And I think that same thing is really true with any collaboration. You learn that it's not about person. When you're collaborating, you're really talking in this case about how do we all work together to promote student learning. It's about the student learning. It's not about the teacher's teaching. So really, really struck home with me just to think about those things. The data, I really thought the information on data was very practically oriented as well, particularly like the idea of providing teachers with some guiding questions to ask as they are going through and analyzing data. You know, which students got it, which students didn't, what do we need to do differently, what part of this lesson worked for which teachers, and so on. So I really believe that teachers came away from that with lots of practical, useful ideas that they can put in place without a lot of effort.
Well, I had a wonderful visit at Westside Elementary School, which is my old alma mater. I watched the school be built and played in the dirt while it was being built. And then I even mentioned that we used to run on top of the school building. He goes, funny you said that because a couple of kids got caught doing that just a couple days ago. I went, oh, thank goodness I never got caught. But we had a wonderful visit. While I was waiting for Mr. Lichty, because he had his announcements in the morning, I went down the hall and kind of looked at the first grade papers were there. It was so neat to see. I was so impressed. They were writing about fall and what they liked most about fall. And it was just nice to see that they were taking their time and writing neatly as first graders. Sometimes that doesn't happen. And the pictures that they drew on their papers indicating fall, that was fun. And then Mr. Lichty started the day with giving positives to the students over the announcements. I thought that was great. We had time to visit, and again, I stayed about an hour. We visited about the new math that we had voted in for curriculum. I think, was it last year, Jared, that we did that? He said it was going really well. The students were responding to it very well, even though they were kind of having to get adjusted to it a little bit, but they really liked it, as well as the teachers. And we talked about one of our strategic goals, which was teacher retention. He said they really don't have problems with teacher retention at Westside. And I think that's really indicative of how well Mr. Lichty leads the school. He's an excellent leader. We discussed what we could do as board members to help retain their teachers and make the school happier. And he said just showing your appreciation anytime you can. And he said one of the things he does as a principal is he himself brings in things various times at the year, whether it is lunch or whether it might be donuts in the morning. And the teachers always really appreciate that. We talked about the cafeteria. We even talked about that, and he said they have an excellent leader of their cafeteria. The woman has been there, and she knows the kids, and they all get along, and she loves her job. And so sometimes you don't think about those kind of workers when you're visiting a school, but he said that she was amazing. And finally, I ended my visit by walking down the hallway. Now, Westside, I don't know if you know, but it stopped when I was there, just stopped. It wasn't very big at all. And they've actually added 2 different additions. And what used to be the gym is now the library. So having gone to school there, it was really interesting to see the school. But we went down to the end of the room where the music rooms are always at the end. And Mrs. Rugg, I think it's Rugg. I substitute hot for her, but she was doing a wonderful job. The kids were all sitting on the floor, and they had their rhythm sticks, and up on the computer they had all these rhythms, and they were you could just tell they were enjoying every minute of it. She's doing a fantastic job, so thank you to her. And so I was just very impressed with Westside School and Mr. Lichty and how well he runs the school there.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, we'll move on to public comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak tonight? Speak now, if you'd like to speak. Okay, we'll move on to information discussion items. Finance and Facilities Report, Eric Wilson.
Thank you, Madam President. Total amount of claims to be approved by on the consent agenda by specific fund are listed below. I have some other items about the audit that I will discuss when we get to that agenda item.
Teaching and Learning Report, Mr. Oswald.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm actually going to start off with one that is not on my list. I apologize. Thursday afternoon, we had a ribbon cutting for our Panther branch, Elkhorn Valley Bank. We are working with in partnership for a program called the In-School Savings Program. And I did put some information in front of you. They have done a press release that explains the program and the goals that they have. And I did also put a permission form that parents and students will sign if they would like to participate in the program. We brought this to Finance and Facilities last spring to seek permission to do this, and it's a really exciting partnership with Elkhorn Valley Bank, and they've been great in organizing this, but the program is centered around building the habits of saving with students, and so they actually have a branch of Elkhorn Valley Bank that operates in their school once every 2 weeks, and so students are encouraged to bring their money, and they get to save in an account that they will then get to either withdraw when they graduate from fourth grade, or they will get to roll it into a savings account with Elkhorn Valley Bank. And Elkhorn Valley has decided they will match the first $5 if the student donates the first time, or deposits the first time. They will match up to $5 of that deposit, and so it's a great opportunity. But again, the goal is to teach students how valuable it is to save frequently, and so the goal is not to bring large deposits, but to bring deposits as frequently as possible, and the goal is to build that healthy habit of savings. And so we did the ribbon cutting ceremony at Elkhorn Valley Bank last Thursday. They have done grand opening ceremonies at every school, every one of our 7 elementaries, which have been very neat events to attend. It's very exciting, and they had one of those machines they brought in that would have cash that flies up, and the students got to try to grab as much as they could, and then Elkhorn Valley did match the amount that the student was able to get a hold of, and so that was a really cool thing to see as well. And so in the 7 schools, over the first day that the banks were open, we had 118 students who deposited a total of $1,265.63. With that, Elkhorn Valley is matching $565 in contributions, and anytime the student didn't have to bring their first deposit on the first day, anytime they bring their first deposit, Elkhorn Valley is going to match that deposit. And then they've also partnered with our foundation to make that an interest-bearing account, and they're going to donate that interest back to the foundation. So overall, it's a great partnership. You're welcome to take a look at those press releases. They sent that out today to our media partners. So it's an exciting partnership for our schools, and a great opportunity for our students to learn how to be financially literate and saving, understand the value of saving. The first thing I do have on my list is to piggyback off what Dr. Goebels talked about. We had our PLC professional development on October 20th. Each group of teachers spent roughly 3.5 hours with our presenter, Maren Powers, who is an author from Utah, and she is actually currently in the classroom. And I think, as Dr. Goebels said, the value of that time spent was really the practical application for really getting a clear picture of this is what PLC needs to look like. These are the conversations we need to be having. Here's how we have those conversations, all centered around student achievement. And so as a result of that, we have laid out a little bit more of a tight structure for how PLCs are going to operate at our schools. Every Wednesday, we'll begin with data conversations over just simply the things that teachers taught over the last week. I think sometimes it's confusing when we say the word data. We're really talking about what have we taught over the last week? Can we clearly identify which students understand, which students don't understand? And can we provide support for those students who don't understand? That, in a nutshell, is the PLC process. And so it was a great day to get that message and get that clarity among our staff. And now, as a leadership team, we're working to consistently follow up to ensure that those things are happening on a week-to-week basis so that we can maximize our PLC time and maximize student learning as a result. The next thing I have is a Nebraska Literacy Project. As you may know, the governor or the commissioner of education, Dr. Maher, his big focus is literacy. And so we are working as a part of a cohort through ESU 8 to get our teachers trained in K through 3 in letters, which is a program based in the science of reading to help teachers understand a little bit more effectively how to teach reading, how to support students who are struggling to read. And so we are accessing some of the dollars that the state had in CLSD grant money. It's an exciting time, but it is a lot of work. And so we're working to get our teachers the resources they need to meet all of our student needs and help all of our students be literate by the time they leave third grade as the commissioner's goal. And lastly, I do have AQuest preliminary results. They are embargoed until I believe it is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So we're in a period of review right now. I will be meeting with principals, each principal individually, to go over their results. And as soon as we are allowed by the state to release those results, we will do that. And we will give you some follow-up information on what those results look like and what it means for us moving forward. That's all I have. Any questions for me?
Just like to comment that I attended the ribbon cutting, and it was just amazing to see all these kids so excited about being tellers in a bank, and I really enjoyed it. You could tell it was very well thought out and very well organized, so super impressive program.
And I did forget to mention that part. The tellers at the bank are our fourth graders. They got to apply. They had to do an interview, a job interview with the bank staff to be chosen as a teller. So they get to do that exciting job and learn a little bit about how that works.
Just a comment, Jared, I am going to stop talking about PLC.
It's all right. The teachers are probably tired of hearing me talk about it too, but we're not going to stop.
Thank you, Jared. Programs report.
Thank you, Madam President. First on my agenda is ATSI SPED Strategies Training. I will give a little brief review of what ATSI is and then talk about what we went to this last week on it. So ATSI is Additional Targeted Support and Improvement. And it's an ESSA federal requirement that looks at creating an action plan for specific student subgroups who are underperforming below state standards. And back in 22-23, based on that data, Norfolk Public Schools had 7 subgroups in 3 different buildings identified on this ATSI list. And so based on that, last week we were invited to go to a training that was being held for ATSI schools. And I was fortunate to be able to go with Mr. Oswald and Mr. Lichty to that. We had a really nice smattering of, we had our data and our teaching and learning. We had building leadership there and then special education there. And the conversations that we had were really, really deep and very, very rich and enlightening. And I've told Jared to hop in if I'm forgetting something or not explaining something or if he has things to add. So I told him make sure he hops in if he wanted to. But so anyway, we went and we reviewed data and we were looking at those subgroups and talking about how do we create a plan that's inclusive and equitable for our educational systems that uses data and creates an opportunity to reduce those achievement gaps. And there's already things we have been doing. That was a nice part of the conversation too. Things that we're doing with PLC and some of our groupings and looking at data are all things that will help our strategies that are recommended for closing the achievement gap for these groups of students. And so that was very, very reassuring. We also looked at things such as educator and leadership effectiveness, as well as student data. What data are we looking at? Is it the best data? Is it how do we use that data? How are students, aware of how they're doing? We will return one day in March for additional follow-up. That team will, and we also are planning. Mr. Oswald and I will be meeting with the principals tomorrow to just reaffirm and kind of, we got a good 7 months. What can we really hit hard? What will give us, our students the best chance and the best effort at improvement. And so we're looking forward to visiting with them tomorrow. And also, I think we talked about that it's something that a process we can use in the future if we need to, in the fall, if we have additional groups that are on different levels of this process, we can start right away and get moving and feel like we're taking steps to make improvements for our students.
You covered it very well. I don't have a lot to add. I think there's two things we saw, some things that are very short term that can help us because the opportunity to exit ATSI happens next spring with our NSCAS testing. So we've got some really targeted groups of students that we want to focus on with those buildings between now and then, but then also some big picture structural things that we identified as areas where we could improve.
And so what happens if you don't exit?
Yes, if a subgroup doesn't exit, then we would move to what is called CSI, right? It's the comprehensive support and improvement. And things, there may be, and given where things are with funding, there may be funding for some additional strategies or teachings or professional development. So, but we're hoping we are not in that group, so.
Do you want to talk about sped count too, or?
Yep, that one's just really pretty brief. We ended October, or our September count with 952 students, which is 25 students up from a year ago, and it's about 2% more than where we were. So we're looking to dive deeper into those numbers. We're looking at specific eligibility categories, and that's bringing about some discussion with maybe some subgroups as well, making sure we're not over-identifying or under-identifying ethnicity groups or over-identifying in certain eligibility categories. So we'll be looking at that. We did have 6 buildings whose, just based on pure numbers of students eligible, went up, and 5 buildings where eligible students went down. And students, we had one building go up 3 students, and one of our biggest increases was 28 students in one building. That's a pretty big increase. And then buildings that went down, it was anywhere from 4 to 9 students per building. So
About 18%, 20% of our students?
22.
22%. Wow. Okay. Lynette. Student Services Report, Chuck Hughes.
Thank you, Madam President. First thing that I'm going to talk about tonight is the NCSA School Safety Summit that was held in Lincoln on October 16th. In the past, they did a lot of breakout sessions. This year, they kind of changed the format. It was meeting with 2 of our state patrolmen. One was out of Lincoln, one was out of Omaha, and they were just talking about some of the latest trends and things they're seeing on the street with youth. But their main focus was on drugs and youth, specifically marijuana. So one of the NCSA directors comes from Colorado, so he was telling stories about what they were seeing in Colorado, if this were something that comes to Nebraska, things to look out for, and just to be prepared ahead of time. So a lot of good conversation was had, not only by the speakers, but by some of us directors that were in attendance. When we did have breaks, we were able to talk with one another and kind of brainstorm ideas moving forward. So, second thing I have for you is parent-teacher conference numbers. There's the historical data of our district over the last 3 years, and then I do have it broken down by building there for you. You can see that our elementary numbers are obviously a little more higher with participation with our parent-teacher conferences, and then it really tails off at the high school. So,
Just a note, high school, since we moved it so you're in their classrooms, so the students are in their classrooms, I just feel that it's a whole lot of, I liked it so much better when we were in the gym, because then you could just walk in and see everybody you wanted. Now, when you go to high school, I feel the hour I'm there, I spend 40 minutes walking from room to room and trying to find the room, and 20 minutes actually talking. It's just a lot more cumbersome. I don't know, is there any chance you could go back to the gym, or is this going to be the way it is?
that is a conversation we had today as directors, just to brainstorm different ideas because we know that, 30% isn't ideal when it comes to parent-teacher conferences. The other nice thing that I've noticed, having kids go to high school, as far as the gym versus classroom, like this year, I got stuck in a hallway for 45 minutes waiting to go into a conference where that person was at their desk. Obviously, they can't see the hallway. Where if you're in the gym, you can definitely tell if you are the teacher that has a line backing up. So that's a conversation that we'll have with our principals, but it is a good observation.
Tom or Terry, you had high schoolers. Did you notice, do you feel that once it's in the classrooms, it's a lot more snazzy?
Yeah, it was much easier as a parent because you can see, you kind of lay out which teachers you need to talk to, and if a spot opens up, you can just kind of swing over there quick. And
No, thank you for that feedback. So we'll give that to our building leaders, and we'll hopefully make those changes. So.
Just a question. I know that the percentage of attendance for senior high has never been very high, but I don't quite have a sense of, is this a little lower than it was the last couple of years, or is it about the same?
It's very similar. Usually our fall attendance is better than the spring, but that 29-30%, I think it's usually been about 32. So. And the last thing I have for you is our monthly junior high cell phone report. A comment from Mr. Henricks, our Dean of Students there. He has noticed that students are more engaged with one another this year. My most consistent observation of students is during lunchtime. Students are interacting more with one another rather than staring at their screens. And in the classroom, we've had fewer referrals involving cell phones, and our teachers can spend more time teaching content rather than giving students cues to put their phones away. And then a staff member, one of the 8th grade teachers, her comment was, I've noticed students spending more time talking, laughing, and building genuine connections with one another. And we also have to stop class less for phone interruptions. So definitely positive feedback that they're seeing at the junior high. In 24, their October office referrals, they had 19 of them for phones. This year they had 14, so they went down 5. And then overall, because I've asked Mr. Vergitz to keep a running total for me, last year at this time they had 53 referrals for phones, and currently they're at 31, so they are down 22 compared to last year, which I thought was good. I also talked to Mr. Settles at the high school on Friday, just to see what he's noticing and what his leaders are noticing. He has said that they aren't seeing many issues during instruction, and they've noticed they have not had to battle phones near as much as they have in the past. So I have not asked for his numbers of referrals yet, just because our focus was mainly on the pilot that we were doing. But.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Human Resources and Accreditation, Mrs. Baumann.
Thank you, Madam President. On my information this month, I do have some job fairs that I attended. Lynette and I went to the USD Speech Language Pathologist Fair, as those have remained open, several positions through the year. So we went and interacted with beginning students and those that are getting close to their internship year. Attended the Nebraska Wesleyan Educator Fair and the UNL Educator Fair. So not only still trying to fill the few unfilled that we have for this year, we're already starting to look for next fall. Thursday I'll be at USD for their job fair. I was last week at Wayne State College. I spoke with their NENTA students, which those are students that they work with that get their sub certificates while they're in college, and then they come out into not only our building but surrounding communities and sub for us. And I go every semester and talk to that group, just letting them know if they're not subbing in Norfolk, how to make that happen, talk about what student teaching looks like, our stipend, our processes, and then talk about jobs and what that looks like in Norfolk as well, along with some interview tips and lots of HR hiring things for them. So just try to connect with our Wayne State students as much as I can as they move through their program so that they have a connection to our district.
Good stuff, thanks. Superintendent report, Mr. McAllister.
Excuse me. This month I had the opportunity to also the PLC process, and we can't talk about it too much, Patty. I also had this opportunity to visit with the other half of the staff when they weren't in the PLC training. I had the opportunity to speak at the alternative school. Those students at the Optimus Club had a couple policy committee meetings and one negotiation committee meeting, Region 3 superintendent's meeting here in Norfolk, the foundation's tradition event, teammates meeting, and then met with the superintendent evaluation committee. I do have a report for you on student enrollment. As you've heard, we're down students. We're down 135 students from last year. The biggest influx of that is we had 357 seniors graduate, and we have 279 new kindergartners. So right there, 78 students different. The biggest class changes, and what I did is I looked at kindergartners going into first grade, and so in kindergarten we lost 12 students, in second grade we lost 17, and in fourth grade we lost 17. Just in the summer transition. Interesting, in high school we gained a student. So some move out, some move in. So of the 135 though, nearly 80 of them are graduate to incoming students, or just fewer kids in the district. So that's that report.
How many do you suspect, maybe like through immigration status, like how many did you just lose? They didn't request a transfer, you just didn't come back? What do you think you attribute those to?
We do have some that just got lost. Okay, they're no longer showing up, and we haven't had a request for records. I looked at this information as far as ethnicity, and there's not a real clear indicator. I think, if I recall, sophomore Latino females really decreased, but there was an increase in the males. So, but I did look at that specifically to see if I could see any trends, and I could not see that. Any other questions on enrollment?
What is that data as of? Like, what was the date that data was pulled? Is that the beginning of the school year recently?
October 1st. And I do, as long as I have a shout out to Bo, and as it relates to the PLC process, they started their instructional rounds at the junior high this past week, and just a tremendous opportunity for our teachers to learn and observe from other teachers. And our staff is really excited for this opportunity, and we have already received very good feedback from his staff. So way to go, junior high. Also want to thank the teaching and learning team for advancing our reboot initiative of the PLC. I think it's needed, and they're aligning that with the MTSS process. And a reminder, sometimes we throw those acronyms out. MTSS is multi-tiers of systems of support. And they're just really committed to focusing on the 4 essential questions of what we want kids to know. How do we know if they know it? What do we do if they don't know it? And what do we do if they already know it? So appreciate all your efforts. Thank you.
For your report, committee reports now. We'll have Finance and Facilities report. We met at 4 o'clock today. The committee discussed and reviewed, well, first of all, the audit. We had the lady from the audit company come, and she presented the audit. We went through claims and board bills, and then we talked about future RFPs that we will have coming up throughout this school year. And maybe a facilities report in December that will talk about what we should need improvements on facilities. Policy Committee report, Tom Stanton, what do you have to tell us?
Just a little bit.
A little. Oh.
Policy Committee met on Monday, November 3rd and Tuesday, November 4th. Present was Cindy, Patty, and myself, along with Mr. McAllister and Callan. We did a review of the Section 8000 policies. The recommendations that we are making to the Policy Committee for your consideration are to reaffirm the policies listed there, I'm not going to read all those. And then we did have 3 recommendations for revisions to policies. Policy 8110, under purpose and role of the board, we just had some minor grammar changes. Number 11, it talks about conducting an annual review of policies. We want that changed to continuous review, just because it isn't something that only happens annually, it happens over a 4-year cycle. And then number 12, previous language was that if anyone wanted to recommend a policy review or change, that it would be submitted to the superintendent for consideration and recommendation. And we want to add the verbiage, submitting them to the superintendent for consideration and recommendation to the policy committee. All 3 of these will be voted on separately later. I'm going to skip 8151, standing committees. They changed the name of the staff member of the month to award for excellence, so we just want that reflected in policy. And then 8130, there was substantial changes to the annual organizational meeting. I'm not going to go over all of that. If there's questions during discussion, I'll be more than happy to go over that with everyone. And then we did table some policies on code of ethics, adoption amendment, suspension of policies, and the formulation of administrative regulations. Those are all things that we all felt we need more information before we make any recommendations on. We also had discussions on policy 5205 related to graduation requirements, policy 5007 related to foreign exchange students, and then just policy questions regarding administration attending national conventions, which we'll be having other discussions about. And then later for your vote, we'll have second readings of policies from 3132 and 8342. And then our next meeting will be December 1st.
Public Schools Foundation report. The Norfolk Public Schools Foundation met on October 20th. At the beginning of the meeting, Insight Financial presented their quarter report on our financial statements. Insight does our endowment and the investing of our endowment. Final preparations, we talked a lot about the traditions event that we had on October 23rd. We also approved the guidelines. We're going to start a Norfolk Public Schools Hall of Fame, and we inducted our first group of Hall of Fame members into the people into the Hall of Fame at their traditions breakfast. One of them was Johnny Carson, but nobody from his family came back, but we still wanted him in there. And approval of distributions for the Margaret Robinson Memorial Education Fund through 2027 and purchasing the inclusive playground. We're just helping the Bel Air. We'll funnel the money. Bel Air has raised the money. We'll write the check, and then Bel Air will reimburse the foundation for the inclusive playground that Bel Air is going to get for their new life program. And approval of the partnership for the in-school savings program. Jared talked about that, where we'll get the interest off of the investments that the kids have made into their savings programs. So that's the gist of that. Superintendent Evaluation Committee report. The Superintendent Evaluation Committee met last Monday. To bring you up to speed, all of us evaluated Mr. McAllister. We submitted our answers online. NASB compiled all of our answers and sent a report back to me that I forwarded on then to Tom and Terry. Then we met last Monday. We came up with these positives. After looking at the evaluation of the superintendent, we came up with the following. Here's what we find are the strengths the evaluation committee did. After I go through them, you guys can feel free to add anything that you would like to also. We like it that Mr. McAllister is out in the building and events. We've gotten a lot of good feedback saying, I saw him here, I saw him there. He's very good at interacting with people of all ages, from the kindergartners or preschool all the way up to 80-year-olds. He is good with all ages, very approachable. We also feel that he's been a very good mentor to Eric. He has not done the budget, but he's had oversight for the budget, and it's been nice that Mr. McAllister has different schools that he's been to in the past, so he brings those experiences and says, we did this, or we could try this, and that's been helpful to Norfolk Public Schools. Even if just presenting the information or looking at the budget different ways, we've appreciated those experiences and that education. And our last strength of Mr. McAllister, we really believe that he values the education of all students. He just believes everybody's special, everybody deserves a good education, and he will look out for absolutely anybody that walks through these buildings and treats them all fairly and equally and believes in them. So we think that's very important in a superintendent too. Those are the strengths that we came up with the evaluation committee. Is there anything else that the rest of you would like to add for strengths of Mr. McAllister or the evaluation process?
I would just like to add that it's very clear to me, Mr. Mack, that you are doing everything you think you can do to put us in the best position possible to hire a superintendent who can transition right in and hit the ground running. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank you also for kind of working with us in this evaluation process. It's hard to rate an interim on some things, either because you haven't seen it or they're not going to do it in this time period. But helping us work through how we evaluate superintendents has been really helpful, so I appreciate that.
Then later in the meeting, we will go into executive session and we will talk about the goals that we have for Mr. McAllister going forward through the end of the year. Agenda. Minutes of the previous meeting are attached. Personnel and resignations. Mrs. Baumann, Angie.
Thank you, Madam President. We do have one resignation for your approval tonight. Caitlin Young, special education teacher at our middle school, is resigning effective at the end of this school year. So this is different than what we previously had where someone was trying to get out of a contract. She's resigning prior to the deadline to not return in the fall.
Do you know, this is early, and as a special education teacher, do you have any reasons why or how come or?
So she put this out early because she knew we would need time to find a replacement. So I do appreciate her thinking of her building and her district. For her family's sake, this is what she needs to do, and she notified us with a lot of time, which I appreciate.
That is nice. It's not a retirement, though, isn't it?
No, it is not.
Okay, and claims. Eric Wilson.
Thank you, Madam President. Attached are the claims. These claims were reviewed earlier by our Finance and Facilities Committee. There are 2 conflict statements that will need to be read prior to voting.
Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion by Tom and a second by Patty. Is there any other discussion before we vote?
You want to go first?
Out of abundance of caution, I hereby declare a potential conflict of interest and am abstaining from voting on claims 408 and 410 for Embassy Suites, and claim 878 for mileage reimbursement, and claim 671 and 673. These were all related to the NCSA Legislative Affairs Conference last month. For the month of December in the consent agenda for this meeting, I have signed and filed this written disclosure with the Secretary of the Board. It is my intent to vote on all other remaining items listed on the consent agenda. My vote on the remainder of the consent items should not be taken as a vote one way or the other on the items which I have identified or any of the matters set forth therein or related thereto.
Out of an abundance of caution, I hereby declare a potential conflict of interest and am abstaining from voting on claim number 407 and 409 for Embassy Suites, 480 for mileage reimbursement, and numbers 670 and 672 for the NCSA, and that was for Labor Relations Conference, for the month of November in the consent agenda for this meeting. I have signed and filed this written disclosure with the Secretary of the Board. It is my intent to vote on all of other remaining items listed on the consent agenda. My vote on the remainder of the consent items should not be taken as a vote one way or the other on the items which I have identified, or any of the matters set forth therein or related thereto.
Please vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. Action items, 9.1. Discuss, consider, and take action to acknowledge and accept the 2025 annual financial audit into record. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you again, Madam President. The annual audit for the 24-25 school year has been completed by Ford CPA. The audit findings were shared with the Finance and Facility Committee by Mrs. Janzine earlier today. Just a quick summary of that presentation. Ms. Janzine's, this process starts in end of June, beginning of July, where we actually start going through, updating all of our records for her to come in. We end our fiscal year August 31st, and then we continue through this process where we just submitted the final audit beginning of November. For tonight, we are just accepting the audit, whether you agree or disagree. These are the numbers of our district, and we're just accepting it into record. It was a quality audit, very positive. She was positive about the financial practices within our district and spoke well of those. We did have two findings, one minor, one a little bit more than minor, but the findings were just an I-9 issue that we had, which that's been in the news here a couple months ago, just making sure that we have I-9s in everybody's files. We've already gone through and made a correction to that. Been going through and getting those, any file that's missing an I-9, we're having those I-9s updated. The other finding, this is different than what we've done in the past, is that we combined with the connection that we have with the foundation, we've combined the foundation audit with our school audit. There's just so many things that we do in connection with our foundations, and we work so closely together that at the state level, they're starting to say like, okay, if you guys have this tight of a connection, we need to make sure that we're checking both set of books together. So as you review this audit, you'll see that there's a column for Norfolk Public Schools, and there's a column for the foundation as well. This audit will be posted online on our website, and anytime you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask me. So the second finding is within that connection to the foundation, that there's a lack of segregation of duties within the foundation because we have one employee in the foundation. So it makes it hard to segregate those duties, and it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to hire another employee in the foundation to double check somebody's work. So the foundation has already discussed this with their board. I don't know if you want to talk on the board's side of that thing for the foundation, or I can go ahead.
What I know is that we're going to have our foundation board president always double check the invoices first before they're even submitted. Right now, we have to have 2 signatures on any check over 1,000, but we're going to, any invoice, have them looked at before they're even submitted for payment.
And an advantage that the foundation does have is they have an outside accounting firm that also takes care of all their invoicing and check writing as well. So we've shared this information with the auditor. She feels very confident that this is a practical solution. Because it's always going to be one employee, it'll still be something that pops up on our audit every year, but she is happy with the solution that we have in place. So overall, like I said, positive audit. She's happy with the financial practices going on inside my office, so that's always good news to hear too. So any questions?
I'll make a motion to acknowledge and accept the 2025 annual financial audit into record.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Patty and a second by Cindy. Is there any other discussion? From a foundation standpoint, we're just very thankful that we could be within the audit this year. We've run into it where when we're asking for grants and things, and they always ask, were you audited? Do you get audited? And so now that we can be including you and we can check that box, we include with the school, and it was a lot cheaper for us for the foundation. So thank you for letting us join you in the audit, the foundation.
And just a quick thank you and congratulations. If anyone works where they get audited, that's a pretty stressful event in your work year. So you guys did a great job, and the findings that were found were minor and easily corrected. So thank you, and to everyone in the Business Services Department.
Please vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
Discuss, consider, and take action to approve the second and final reading of revised board policies 3132 and 8342. Mr. McAllister.
There have been no changes in these policies since the first readings. In policy 3132 is, if you recall, there was a minor word change, simplified acquisition threshold, and it included in that, excuse me, travel costs that needed to be included in there. And in 8342 is simply a weather delay for board meetings and how we'll notify people of that.
I'll make a motion to approve the second and final reading of revised board policies 3132, internal controls, and 8342, designated method of giving notice of meetings.
Second the motion?
We have a motion by Tom and a second by Cindy. Is there any other discussion? Or second by Patty, sorry, second by Patty. Is there any other discussion? Please vote.
Motion carried, 5-0.
9.3, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the first reading of the reaffirmed internal board policies. Mr. McAllister.
No changes were made to the following internal board policies. The policy committee recommends that they are simply reaffirmed.
I'll make a motion to discuss, consider, and take action to approve the first reading of the reaffirmed internal board policies.
Can you read that again, Cindy? The recommended motion?
Recommend a motion to discuss, consider.
No, down below it says the motion. I don't.
Oh, I'm on the wrong one?
Well, just scroll down. There's lots of policies at the.
I won't make the motion, let somebody else make it.
Well, no, I just wanted to make sure it was read right.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of the reaffirmed internal board policies as presented.
Second the motion?
So we have a motion by Cindy and a second by Patty. Is there any other discussion? Please vote.
Motion carried, 5-0.
9.4, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the first reading of the revised board policy 8110, purpose and role of the board. Mr. McAllister.
The policy committee has reviewed this policy and is recommending its revisions, and simply, as Tom mentioned, changing the word to an annual to continuous review of policies, and then recommendation to the superintendent for consideration, and then the superintendent would recommend it to the policy committee.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of revised board policy 8110, purpose and role of the board.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Tom and a second by Patty. Is there any other questions? Any other discussion? So this basically just measures out the chain of command then, lets us know if we get confronted from a public member, what to handle it. Is that what we're talking here?
No, not really. It just states that we're going to continue to review our policies continuously rather than annually. It's an ongoing process. And then to number 12 says, develop a procedure whereby policy changes and/or additions may be proposed by board members or other school employees or the general public by submitting them to the superintendent for consideration and recommendation to the policy committee. And we added to the policy committee.
Thank you. So this is, if we wanted a policy change, we go to the superintendent? Yes. Okay.
It was more just a clarifying statement. Before, it just said they would be submitting them to the superintendent for consideration and recommendation, period. Mm-hmm. Now we just want to clarify the language, because the superintendent can recommend policy, you can't create policy, only the board can. So we want to make sure that it's set to the recommendation to the policy committee.
That makes sense, yeah. Please vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
9.5, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the first reading of the revised board policy 8151, standing committees. Mr. McAllister.
This is simply a clarification. In addition, one board representative shall be appointed to serve on each of these school committees, and it previously was staff member of the month, and we changed that to award for excellence.
I'll motion to approve the first reading of the revised board policy 8151, standing committees.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Cindy and a second by Terry. Is there any other discussion? Please vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
9.6, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the first reading of the revised policy 8130, annual organizational meeting. Mr. McAllister.
The annual organizational meeting, we spent quite a bit of time on this, and just to avoid any long overdue, drawn out election procedures for the board in January, the changes are as followed. The following outlines the procedures for filling the positions of board president and vice president in the event that no candidate receives a majority of votes after 5 official ballots. So this would take place after 5 ballots, and there isn't a decision. The president's succession procedure would be after 5 ballots, no board member has received the majority of votes. Retention of incumbent. The board member who served as president during the immediately preceding term shall continue to serve as president. Succession by vice president. In the event the immediate past president is no longer a member of the board, the vice president from the immediately preceding term shall become president. Succession by seniority. If both the immediate past president and the immediate vice president are no longer members of the board member with the longest cumulative years of service shall serve as president. The tiebreaker, if a tie still exists after applying the seniority rule, a coin toss will make the final decision. And the vice president goes through the same series with the incumbent. And, well, let me just read it. Retention of the incumbent. The board member who serves as vice president during the immediate preceding term shall continue to serve as the vice president. Succession by seniority or vacancy. In the event that the immediate vice president no longer is on the board member still available, not already filling the president's role via this policy, with the most cumulative years of service shall serve as vice president. The tiebreaker, if a tie still exists after applying the seniority rule, a coin toss will make the final decision. Another addition is number 3. All individuals elected will take office upon the conclusion of the election. And then under B3, after the oath of office is review inside the code of conducts and ethics. Any questions on that?
So cumulative means
Total years of service, not in a row.
Okay, so we could stop and start.
Yes.
Okay. Is that what it means? Okay.
So if you had a previous board member who served 4 years, there was a gap in their service and they came back for 4, they would have 8 cumulative years.
Did we discuss this like last summer or something? And this is exactly what some of the other board members didn't agree with?
So I was going to say, so this is the same policy that we reviewed earlier this spring. And I will say in the policy committee, we had a really, really great conversation about this and what we wanted it to be and how we wanted it to look. And we had a really good conversation about cumulative versus continuous. And as a committee, we agreed that cumulative should be the correct, and with Mr. Mack's advice, would be what we would want for that descriptor there.
If I may, the term that was in there was tenured. And as discussed, tenured means more than just continuous service years. It also means evaluation, effectiveness, but you can't use a subjective term like that when you're electing somebody, because everybody's subjective view is different. So it falls back to recent years versus cumulative years of service on a board. So if you have a board member who's been on here, if you get 3 new board members and others have been on here all the same, then it doesn't make any difference. But if you have someone who has been on the board for 6, 7 years and then comes back on, they would have precedence over that.
Yeah, I think that was the same discussion we had a year ago.
Yeah, it was. The problem was that we couldn't come to agreement on what tenured meant. Did it mean continuous or did it mean the other? And so we're taking out that ambiguity and putting in cumulative years of service, not consecutive. Taking out tenured, yes.
Can I have a motion we can discuss?
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of the revised board policy 8130 annual organizational meeting.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Tom and a second by Patty. Is there any other discussion before we vote? Questions, comments? Okay, please vote.
Motion carried for 1, voting nay, Terry Bauer.
10, closed session. We're going to go into closed session to prevent the needless injury of the reputation of an individual and to discuss the superintendent evaluation. So I need a motion to convene into closed session.
I'll make a motion to enter closed session to prevent needless injury to the reputation of an individual and to discuss the superintendent evaluation.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Tom and a second by Patty. Is there any other discussion? Please vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
So I don't anticipate this taking long, but we'll go in and discuss. We come out. Do we make a motion to approve? I don't think we'll have any more motions. When we come back out, then we have a work session with superintendent search discussion, and then that'll be the end of our meetings. So just let you know what we have left. Yeah, so central office can go, because there's nothing left for you. Mr. Mack will come in to our closed session, then he can leave, and then we'll have Sherry and Mr. Neal come up. That's our evening.
Do you need a quick break, or are you okay to? Okay, all right. Okay, we're going to keep moving then. I love it. Well, thank you for having us out this evening. I know you've had a very long day, I understand. So hopefully you've got enough brain power left to muddle through this. It'll be quick, hopefully.
Our ad is out on the website then, correct? And our job description, can I ask, has anybody applied?
You have 4 applications right now.
Oh, we have 4, oh.
Yeah. So we have, we kind of waited a little bit and staggered it a bit because we're still, just shy of 2 months from your deadline. So you don't want to have it out there too early. I put the Teach in Nebraska ad in last week. I think it was 2 weeks ago when somebody from the district office, it was maybe Mr. Hughes, put the ad on NCSA because we aren't allowed to post on there, of course. We've had it on our website, and we have the brochure uploaded to that as well, and have just kicked it out a few other places, sent it out to all the colleges in Nebraska because they send it out to people who have graduated from there. So yes, advertising, everything's going well. Visited with a handful of people that are either going to apply or they're planning to, but it just takes a little time for people who are in administrative positions to have the time to do that. So things are going, I think, just as we would expect them to. That was a good question, thank you. So a few things that we have on the agenda this evening, and you have some papers in front of you, of course. Just a quick reminder of the timeline. Our next meeting is scheduled to be January 12th, but we may decide that I'll come back in December just for a couple of small things, or you'll maybe just decide we can wait until the January meeting to talk about those instead. So we'll see what it's like when we get to the end. We're slated to have the interviews on Tuesday, January 20th. So that's a little update, just a reminder on the timeline. I wanted to talk for just a minute about screening, and you don't have a document in your paperwork that aligns to this, but I wanted to just give you a quick update because I know at one of the first meetings there were some questions regarding immigration status and education verification, that sort of thing. So I did a little checking with OneSource, the background check company, and that's who we utilize for the criminal history, credit history, and adult and child abuse check. They did add to our account E-Verify as well as the education verification. If you would like to utilize that, there is just a very small additional cost that would be outside of what we typically do for those background checks. But we can do the education verification. What they do is when the applicant fills out the link information, they have to put down what their highest level of education obtained was, and then OneSource will verify that. And then the other piece is the E-Verify, and they cannot verify an applicant's immigration status, but they can verify their ability to work legally in the United States. So that is, one of them is I think 15, one's 20, something like that. So not a lot of additional expense, but we could certainly do that for your finalists or people that are in the top 5, 6 applicants if you would like us to do that, and we don't need to decide that necessarily today, unless if this is our last meeting, and then you do. But it's something to mull over. You can talk about it at your next regular meeting and let me know too, but I just wanted to give you that additional assurance that, we are able to do a little bit more if you want us to.
I think we just add it. I mean, it's $50 for both of those. Candidate, true.
That's not a lot of additional expense. And so if you'd like to have that reassurance, we're happy to do that.
I think do it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and then the next thing that I wanted to talk about briefly, and again, you don't have a copy of this in front of you, the survey results. And so we shut the survey off on Friday morning, and I was a little alarmed at first because the board leadership department was in charge of that and was telling me there was over 800 surveys, and I was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to read all of that data? And anyway, it turns out that many people clicked through it, but not that many people actually filled it out. But you did have 170 total results. So there were 11 community members that filled it out, 9 administration. You had 13 classified staff, and then there was around 70 to 80 certified, and the same 70 to 80 for the parent group. I spent an obscene amount of time yesterday reading all the results. I just wanted to be able to validate for you if there was anything of great concern. And so a couple of different ways that you can receive this data. The original report is Excel, and it's probably, a couple hundred pages. And then broken down into PDF documents for each group. I went through yesterday and read all of it and summarized. In other words, if somebody said they should be ethical or they should have integrity, I didn't put that down 8 times. I just put it down once. And so, in other words, I summarized it in that fashion. I didn't change necessarily words, but just to give it, be a little easier to read. Then also for the class, or for the certified and the parent group, because it was so extensive, not only did I do my own summary of the data, I also dumped it into AI and had them come up with a summary, which was much shorter than mine. But nevertheless, so I have the data, my own kind of summarized data, turns out to be 40 pages, which is much better. 41, much better. It is landscape, so if that means anything, that's not as long as it being this way, but anyway. So I would be happy to email the data to you or the information to you. Just know that there are a lot of great things going on, as you know, in Norfolk Public Schools and the community. There were very few negative comments, and I was very pleasantly surprised by that, because typically when we see online electronic surveys that are anonymous, they're not always kind. And so I was very pleasantly surprised, and I know Dr. Neal read through them as well. What would you say stood out for you, Dr. Neal?
I think the piece that stood out the most that Sherry hasn't mentioned is the student-focused instruction and leadership that was described over and over by all the different groups, by administrators, certified teachers, that's the focused and vision of the district, and then hearing that from parents as they felt that their children were dealt with on an individual basis on their strengths and needs.
Overall, I would describe as very positive feedback, and the challenges identified, I don't think would be anything that would surprise any of you. Just, that continual need to retain staff, recruit staff, where do we find more educators, the budget challenges, things like that. And I just thought it was overall very positive feedback. So I will send it. And like I said, you're more than welcome to read my summarized version, which is very accurate. Or the full load. So, but a good response overall, I think. So, okay, so now the documents you do have in front of you, the first one is, I believe, an interview schedule. Is that what you had on the top of your pile? And you might get dizzy looking at this, but I sat down and drew this out. This does not have to be a final version, but trying to give the board 90 minutes of time with each candidate, and then giving all the other groups 1 hour. So that was a little difficult because they had to stagger. So as you can see, the lunch time for each group is a little bit varied, which is okay, because that means there's not 50 people trying to eat lunch at the same time, or 40. And then the candidates all have a lunchtime scheduled. And then on the back side of the document, I do have listed what would be considered district administration for that district admin team and building administrators straight off the website. And then that staff team we'll talk about here in just a moment. Now, I don't want to spend a great deal of time changing and manipulating this, because as Callan and I and Dr. Neal were just talking about, you might only want to interview 3 people. Or you might want to interview 5 people, and then this would drastically change. And so I don't think it's necessary to spend a lot of time belaboring it tonight, other than, do you believe that these are the correct groups? and that they have an adequate amount of time. And then I tried to leave about at least 15 minutes, but in some cases, a half hour in between the candidates for your groups, your teams, so that they have time to make notes about the candidate before they move on to the next one. And if they need to step out and handle any emergencies at their school buildings, things like that. So there's a little bit of extra buffer time in for that as well. So if you see anything totally glaring, and then Callan and I and Dr. Neal were just discussing where the interviews would actually take place. So there's a little concern about having enough space in this building because this room, the Pentagon room, as I believe it was called, Octagon, okay, yep. This room behind me, it would be awkward to have a group in there because the times won't align with yours, so you'd have candidates and people moving back and forth. So unfortunately, we probably cannot use that room, so we would use that room over there. And then maybe an office that could hold the admin team, the central office, district administration team. And then we might have to utilize another building for the other group. So we might have to also adjust times based on getting the candidate to and from another building nearby. So other than that, is there anything that is glaring on here?
Just a question. Be doing during their lunch? On their own? Is there some kind of structure we're going to have for that?
What my preference would be that the district would have lunch for everybody. And so during that time, you know, if administrators can grab a sandwich box from a sandwich place or something, I'm not going to specifically name any, but, you know, if you have like a sandwich box that could be easily grabbed by people, and then they would go back, everybody would go back to their own rooms and talk about candidates or do notes or whatever they need to do. And then the board would be just in here doing your thing. And then the candidates, that's a great question. There are varied times, but I would assume if Dr. Neal's here, he might be sitting with one of them. I might. Sometimes they're all together chatting. They all know each other. They're going to see each other all day anyway. I know that seems weird, but they do sometimes just sit together and shoot the breeze. But we can have them in different offices too. Each one of them can kind of have a home base so that if they're in between things, they can go to their home base and have a phone call or eat their lunch there, or maybe they have a spouse with them that their spouse can hang out there in between things too. So we might see if we can figure out how to get 4 offices that they could each be in. So good question though, but that'd be what we would say. Yeah, absolutely. So then the staff team, and I'm going to call upon Callan here in a moment to talk about this as well. If you recall, we sent out a sign-up sheet. Callan and I spent time talking about what all needed to be included in, you know, on that sheet as far as information for the negotiations team, because that list will get sent to the negotiations committee, and you are going to pare it down as the way that we had talked about doing that, from my understanding. And so I believe there were 40-ish people that signed up for that. And how many you want on that team is really up to you. It doesn't need to be 20 people. It doesn't need to be only 2 people. I mean, somewhere maybe 8. I don't know how you want to pick those. May depend upon what buildings they're from and what they do. So Callan, would you just talk about that for just a moment?
Yes, so I sent out a Google sign-up form probably about 2 weeks ago, and it closed at noon today, asking staff to volunteer if they wanted to serve on this interview team, and I said you may be selected. We're also looking for people, if it doesn't work out, we need runner-ups, basically. So I closed it at noon today, and we had 44 staff members who volunteered to sign up. So there's a good mixture of classified, certified, definitely more certified staff. Not every building was represented, but there was a good mix from different buildings, so.
For us, is there any thoughts on how we would like that team, the composition of it?
First thoughts was try to get someone from every building, someone with just a diversity, so someone with little experience, someone with a lot of experience, been in the district long time, men, women, young, old. Try to get as much diversity as possible in your selection.
I agree with that. Who's doing the selection? Is that what the question is? The negotiations, okay, missed that, okay.
Was what we had decided at the beginning of this. And then also, I know that Mr. Mack also mentioned that he does have a teacher advisory committee that the principals had selected, and you could always cross-check your list against the TAC advisory committee as well, if you would like to, and either use that as these are people who have been contributing already, so maybe we pick somebody else, or these are people who are contributing and let's continue to have them contribute. I don't know how many of those would have signed up, but
Callan, can you compile that data for us? For
Yes.
each person, like how long they've been with the district, what building?
Yep, when they
their
signed up.
teacher, they put
filled
all
it
that
out. They had to fill out their position, their building, how long they've been with the district. And then any other, I asked a open-ended question, what else do you want to share with us, or do you have anything else you want to share? So it's all in a spreadsheet, so I can definitely send that out to the negotiations team.
those were all things we thought would be helpful for the board to have when you went through and looked at those, so, yeah.
And how soon do you want that team selected?
Yesterday.
When does the negotiations committee meet next?
Next Tuesday.
Well, would be great if you could at least take a look at it and make sure you don't need additional information from the board. Will you all have another meeting in November or not because of Thanksgiving?
That yet. We were going to wait and see until it got closer to the meeting to see if anything came up and that if we needed one or not, so. I don't know
So
the
if you do end up having one, that could be another opportunity to chat about that if you need to as a full board. But what we'd like to do is invite the individuals to help that day and get that going. And do you have a question?
Saying this right, that only the negotiation team is going to pick who's going to be on this staff list.
That
Is
was
that
what
right?
the board originally decided, so that wasn't something I decided. It was something that the board decided at one of our previous work sessions.
I guess I'm a little concerned that we have one school that has no representation. Right? I mean, I realize nobody volunteered, but I wonder if it wouldn't be worthwhile to try and recruit at least one person so every school has some representation of some form. You know, whether it ends up being an administrator.
Well, I think we have
Which-
all the buildings are represented by administrators right now.
Okay,
I mean,
So,
because
yeah.
you said, the board
right.
told us that you wanted somebody from every elementary building, and then, and so if you'll notice on the back of that interview schedule that I gave you, we even have right now the preschool principal, Montessori, they're all the elementaries, and I just took this off the website, so I'm hoping somebody will make sure that if it's not accurate, you let me know if there was a change from what the website said. But I just went straight to the website and listed those individuals based on that. So they will have representation from their admin team. Now, if you want there to be more than that, you know.
I guess I just, I know we had listed all these, but I didn't know that they were all going to definitely be part of the group. If they're all part of the group, then I don't have a problem with that, then there would be representation. But I just wasn't clear that all of them might be.
That was
Or
my
would be.
understanding from the direction that we received at the last work session. If you would like it to be different, we can make it different. But that was my understanding. And so once I get the list from the negotiations team, then I would like to send an initial email out to these individuals and just tell them, here's what's going on. We'd like to invite you to be part of the process. The board wants input from, staff and administration, and that they would need to be available on the date of the interviews, as well as on January 10th, 11th, now I don't have my paper in front of me, that will be coming here, and we'll meet with them at the end of the school day on the 12th to discuss possible interview questions, give them some packets, and ask them to start identifying interview questions for their teams. Any other input or thought on that interview schedule?
So
or
just before
staff?
we go any further, are we all okay with since I know we talked about this before, but are we all okay with the negotiation committee selecting the staff team?
It has to be, if it's done with all six of us, then it has to be an open meeting, and that could get cumbersome and kind of awkward. So I guess I would like it be done in a committee. I don't care which one, but I think it should be done with a committee. I'm fine with negotiations, but if you have other ideas, Cindy, if you've got if you
I'm
want to
just
be
concerned
involved.
about Steve, but would he Zoom it then?
Steve is on the negotiations committee.
I'm saying, so would he be Zooming it, or?
Because he may, I don't know, we may be here or he may not. That, it was to be determined last time I talked to him.
Yeah, that would just be my concern.
We can certainly try to loop him into that process. But I think if Callan, if we get that data, we can start pre-looking at it and do a little pre-work before the meeting. Steve should have some time to go through that.
Okay. Anything else on that topic? Okay. The next several documents have to do with interview questions. Here we are again. And the suggestion that I would give, because we did not receive a lot of feedback on the interview questions, which is okay. But we do need to somehow start figuring it out. So what I would suggest, that first document that you see is the one that you probably have 3 copies of at this point, and it's been emailed twice. I'm actually, unless if any of you want to go through this, I'm going to say let's put this to the side for now, because we created some questions, and then we also have the questions created by Dr. Goebbels, and I think we should just look at those. So unless if any of you have done a lot of homework on this particular document, the first one, I'd say let's pitch that for now and see where we end up. Is that fine? So this top document that you see, let's put it to the side, unless if somebody has gone through it and has extensive notes and wants to actually go through all those questions. Dr. Goebbels came up with questions, and then I also have a third packet right underneath of hers that are questions that we came up with as well, based on the leadership profile. I think we should focus on those questions instead of taking on that giant packet that nobody seems to want to look at, including me. Okay. That's how we shift and do something different, right? So the first...
What are the ones that you came up with?
The third document behind yours. So it says student achievement leadership, and it's got the 4 bullets, and then there's 4 questions underneath of it. Okay. So those 2 documents, I think, are what we'll focus on. So the first one has the blue stripe on it. That's the one that Dr. Goebbels came up with. So this is the first one we're going to look at. And it just...
that
one.
But where did you just previously had these questions, or where did you come up with these?
I looked.
Which is another reason why we can set that big packet aside that we haven't looked at, because...
Well, I appreciate it. You put a lot of time and energy into it. Thank you.
She put a lot of time into it. So I had forwarded her questions out along with that packet, and so I don't know if anybody had a chance to look through all the questions, but I think a starting point for us is going to be to read through the questions that Dr. Goebbels came up with, and then read through the questions that we came up with and see if there's any we can cross off. I believe that Dr. Goebbels, the bold, so if you look on the first page, general, there's a bold question. Tell us about yourself and why you're interested in becoming our superintendent. If we look at all the questions that are identified, so the next set, what are the 3 or 4 most important qualities you possess, or the next question of describe your 3 strongest leadership qualities, I counted that as 1 question because we're only going to pick one of those. So total, I believe there's 27 options. 27 questions that could be picked off of Dr. Google's. So I think that's a great starting point. And I'd like to just go through and see if you like those questions, if we want to stick with those, like, and/or I've written some as well off of the leadership profile. And that'll be the second thing we'll look at. So starting on page 1 of Dr. Google's, under general, there's the tell us about yourself and why you are interested in becoming our superintendent. It aligns with the leadership profile. There's a couple questions under it. Tell us about yourself and why you're interested in the position off of the NASB questions. I feel like that's a great starting question for an interview. So does everybody like that question? Anything that you would add to it?
I think it's great. It gets them talking about themselves.
Yeah, and I like the first bolded question, tell us about yourself and why you're interested in becoming our superintendent.
Perfect. So moving on to that next grouping, what are the 3 or 4 most important qualities you possess that make you an outstanding educational leader? Give examples that illustrate each identified quality, or describe your 3 strongest leadership qualities and provide examples of how you have used these qualities. Either one of those trip our fancy?
Yeah, I
They are.
like describe your 3 strongest leadership qualities and provide examples. I like the example side of it.
I think that's a little bit more concise of a question.
Okay, now we're going to flip the page. And at the end of this, we'll have a list from here, and then we may have a list of a few questions off of my document as well, and then that'll be a much shorter list to look at. So on the top of that next page, be outstanding is the Norfolk Public Schools tagline. You can read the rest of that there. Or if you could create NPS as an ideal public school district, what would it look like? Either of those questions that you like?
I like if you could create NPS as the second one. Hey, superintendent could do a different tagline.
True. Anybody else have thoughts on those 2?
Yeah, I like the second one.
And the next question, what do you think are the 2 challenges? And you can read the rest there. How would you address them? It's kind of a basic question, but it does show you whether or not they've done their research on the district.
So this is a question to the board, and this is just my thought, and I'm asking for all your guys' opinion, but I almost want to take the elephant out of the room and say, other than budgetary or fiscal concerns, what are the 2 top priorities? So we all know fiscal and budgetary is going to be an issue forever.
Yeah.
I just want to get our value out of the interview. We know budget and finance is an issue. What else?
I like it. Yeah, good thinking.
That's a good suggestion. So other than the budgetary challenges all districts face. Okay. And then down at the bottom, how would you describe the process and considerations you use to make decisions? Like that question, or do we want to cross that one off?
I definitely like but the one below it about the PLCs, I want a question about PLCs, so.
I don't think this was an either or. This one was more just how they make decisions. I have one on my list that has to do with making decisions, so let's maybe just table that question and see if we like the one on the other document better. But the bottom question you want me to keep on, Norfolk Public School Districts about PLCs. Is that fine?
And some effective PLCs or.
Okay, so let's see. So what is your experience in PLC? And then as our educational leader, what would you do to ensure that we become the most effective? Okay. So the top question is basically asking them to describe for you, what are the difficult things they've had to decide on? I like that as kind of a thoughtful, outside of the box question of not just your normal, how do you do a budget?
Like it.
Is it too broad? It's asking, explain a difficult situation you had to deal with as an educational leader. Like that could be so like across the gamut of things that superintendent deals with. Like, is it too broad of a question? Should it be a little bit more narrow? Like,
I have a narrower one on my packet. Could I read the narrow one that I have? It is, can you share an example of a difficult decision you have made based on data? How did you ensure the decision was fair and balanced for all involved? Doesn't have to be about data, but just something more specific.
and that's what I was asking. Do we want it to be a little bit more specific so we don't get an answer that may not be as robust as we'd like?
Right, and then they're going to give the perfect scenario of how they solved the problem. If it's not, they're going to give a good example. This would be more specific. I do like yours, Sherry.
Yeah, if you don't mind that it's more specifically just about making a decision based on data. Because I could see how that could be, there could be some conflict and challenge involved in that.
Is there a way to word that differently other than data? Because I understand what you're trying to say, like based off of specific facts or irrefutable proof. I don't know what.
Mine was actually data based on like assessment data is what I intended. So I could, we could make it more specific in that regard. Or it could be even budget, like data, but not everybody might have had that experience. Well, let's keep moving and then when we get to those. So, okay, so for now, do we want to table this question and we may reword it later?
Well, what about a little bit further down? There is, what is the most difficult professional decision you've had to make, and what was the impact on your decision? Do we like that one better?
I mean, it's a good one too.
I like the one that you had, Sherry, and I do like the one that Tom just brought up. What is the most difficult professional decision? So I'm good with either one of those.
Just based on our evaluation, describe the method of communication with board members, administrators, and community members. Do we want?
Yeah, there are some questions under communication that are similar, but that's a great suggestion as well. And if you like the part about what did you learn from the experience, you could ask, what is the most difficult professional decision you have made? What was the impact of your decision, and what did you learn from the experience? So you could still add that part in.
There you go.
Hopefully I'll remember that when I put this together later. Okay, so what are the most important roles and responsibilities you will have as a superintendent? Why do you believe those are the most important? And that's just more about that understanding their whole role. The alternate question I have on my packet is, tell us about your experience managing the full scope of a superintendent's responsibilities, including curriculum and instruction, human resources, student services, business affairs. But then we're literally pointing out for them what the categories we want them to actually talk about. So this is a little more open.
Yeah, I like the bold question there.
All right, on academic achievement, describe curriculum instruction assessment expertise. one example of teaching and learning program you promoted and how it worked, how it impacted student achievement.
I like that question. I think it's fine.
I like the fact that you put how it impacted student achievement.
I like it.
All right, on the next page, talking about accountability, there's two different questions, A and B. I'm assuming that you meant for both of those to be potentially asked, not an either or type of situation. Is that right, Dr. Goebbels?
I think it could be either or.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really,
So read A and read B, and then we can chat about which one you like. Any thoughts on A or B?
I like B better.
B, 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 B. Okay. The next one, what are most important school-related factors? What steps did you take as a superintendent? So those two questions, either or.
It is, yeah.
Okay. Next page, board relations. I really like both of those questions, but either one that you prefer?
I think
Or both?
Both of them, Sherry.
Okay, and then communication. There's a couple there. They're both different. So you could pick both, or neither, or either.
I actually like both of them. What do the rest of you think?
Yeah, I think they're just different enough that I would ask both.
Anyone else have thoughts, or we'll move on?
I like both, probably I like the second one better.
Okay, so would you like to have both of them on the list still, or just the second one? Both? Finance budgeting. That top question gets directly at the heart of what you have on your leadership profile of what you're looking for. And at the bottom, there's two to consider.
So this is an important area, obviously. Not that any of them aren't, but I would ask the first and the second question, because I think both of those two are very important information for us, at least.
Did you say both of the second two questions, or?
Sorry, first and second.
Oh, first and second, okay.
School financial situation, maybe it doesn't apply to us and it's not
I
what
agree.
we consider challenging or.
Okay. Next page, community. And both of those questions are great questions. And again, kind of get right at what you're looking for.
The second one is, like, if they have a family, are you planning to move your family to the Norfolk area?
That gets a little tricky because one of the questions you can't ask is if they have a family. Now, you may know that they have a family, but I would hope that when they would respond to something like that, they would include, yes, my family and I are very excited about this relocation, or no, my spouse has a job somewhere else, or
I was hoping wouldn't happen was he would just move, he or she would just move and the other one would stay and forth every weekend, every holiday, he'd get out of here.
the other thing that I would also mention, though, is one of our pre-interview questions we ask them is, are you planning to relocate to the community? So we're probably going to already have that information and have shared it with you. Because they tell us, our screener, when we call them, that's one of the things we ask.
Yeah.
Maybe just number one.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have a problem with number 2. That's a pretty short answer. It's not like we're taking up a lot of time with that question.
Okay. On strategic planning, there's a couple questions there.
I think they're both good, but we could probably just get away with one of the questions. Do you agree?
I think we need to have the term strategic planning in it, but I agree. So maybe if there's a way to add strategic planning into the second question, I think that would be a good.
Good idea.
So would you like it reworded to say something about how will you determine short and long-term needs of the district based off of our strategic plan? Or do you not want to get into that? You know, and I think, not to speak for Dr. Goebbels, but short and long-term needs might be more like a yearly retreat, that type of thing, goals that you might have, as opposed to an overarching strategic plan that's guiding your district work. So that's where those two questions might both be something to ask. But again, Dr. Goebbels could speak to it because she created those.
I'm fine with that because I agree. I think those are two completely different areas.
Okay, we're on the last page of that. And so the top question on advocating.
Like the second one?
On policy, under policy. We're on advocacy and professional development. So which second one do you mean? There's one bolded question. Okay, that's fine. Hey, it's getting late. It's okay. We like that question? The first one? And then under policy development implementation, there's a couple there. You could do both if you want.
I definitely want number 2, but both are fine. We could ask both.
Okay. And then under labor relations, kind of the final category there, talking about helping teachers and administrators be successful, and then also at the bottom there, building a cohesive administrative team. Either of those that we like?
I think I like the first one a little bit better.
Like them both, I don't care. Either isn't a wrong answer, I don't feel, so.
I
whatever
agree
you
with
guys
that,
want.
Brenda.
I was just double checking if we had anything, the other questions.
How many questions are we preparing?
So right now, that's 26. If you have both of those, that's 26 questions. And we are allowing an hour and a half for the board. I don't know that you want to go much over that. You might have to trim a question or two, but I think, we kind of talked about this at the first work session, and while it is important to give adequate time and ask all the same questions to the candidates, but if you have somebody that's droning on and you've said, hey, we still have quite a few questions to go through and about a half hour left, and they still aren't being succinct in their responses, then if you don't get to all the questions, you don't get to all the questions. So at some point, we're going to have to prioritize these, and I may take a swing at prioritizing, and/or since I know Dr. Goebbels put a lot of this together, we could work together to prioritize and then have the board look at that and see what you think of the prioritizing of the questions, just in case we run out of time. But I think you ask what you want to ask. You've got an hour and a half built in, and that should be adequate time for that number.
I like the prioritizing, just to make sure we.
Right, it's hard to say. I know I don't want to belabor this, but we could very quickly read the questions that I have on the other document. There's not very many of them, and you could see if you feel like you're missing anything, or we could go with this and you could consider it. We don't have to look at these other questions. It's really completely up to you.
Would we be able to read these and then send them in if anybody thought?
Yes, you
there
can
was
take,
anything
you can
different
read through
we
these.
wanted to add?
Yep, you can absolutely read through them and let me know if there's something you'd like to add. Again, we do have another, at least the December meeting that you still have, that we could continue to finalize things or have them organized by priority by then, and then you could review them, because I know it's getting to be a long night, and I don't want to belabor it, and you have some great questions, Dr. Goebbels. And as she said, some of those were straight off of our packet, others she changed a little wording on, but she did a great job of lining that up with the leadership profile, and so I think you're in pretty good shape with what you have.
How does everybody else feel?
I think by these 26, we'd get a good read on the character of the person and his knowledge.
Yeah. I want to just read through this on my own, just because, like Patty said, are we forgetting anything? This might trigger a thought, but I really like the questions we have.
And also, I nearly forgot, Cindy did also suggest a question that she emailed, and it is on page 2 of my document. How would you work with the maintenance department on prioritizing the needs of the buildings, grounds, et cetera? Was something you had emailed me. So we might want to put that on for consideration as well. So again, we may have to trim a question out of there, because 27, just getting up there. But I would add that as well. So there was one under leadership. Tell us about your experience managing the full scope of superintendent's responsibilities, I think was one that we had, right? And then, but it may be too leading in identifying the actual categories of what we want them to talk about, or what you would want them to talk about. And then question 4 on the top student achievement leadership, can you share an example of a difficult decision you have made based on data? I think we've worked that one out already. Was one of them. So I think you can read through these if there is something that spurs your mind.
Comes to my mind is we didn't have anything about how would you recruit or retrain staff. I don't really see a question like that in Patty's packet. If that's important to you guys, if you want to ask about recruitment and retraining staff.
I think it's a good question, but isn't that the Human Resources Department? Am I wrong?
No.
So it was intentional. Yeah.
It was.
Mhm. Like asking them, what do you think about a balanced budget? Well, I don't like it. Who's going to say that? Okay. Yeah. Gosh darn it. All right. Well, we're just about done here. There is an interview protocol document there that you'll see next. I would have given this to you in the spring when you did the interim process. We're not going to go over this. I just want you to read it. It's just got some interview tips in it, which I'm sure a lot of you have interviewed people before, and you all interviewed in the spring. But again, it's just to bring it back in front of you. And then the last two things you'll see there are a little bit deeper dive on some compensation, because you had asked about that at the last meeting or work session. And Dr. Neal went through contracts and dug up as much information as he could possibly get. So I'm going to have Dr. Neal talk about this real briefly.
Promise now, we're not going to go through every cell. This is to add to your, I know, we're going to just add to your resource kit. So I'm just going to talk to you about how to read the document and leave it for you to use, and we're happy to answer any questions that pop up from it. First, just going across the columns, what each of the columns means. Contract years, how the length of the actual contracts, K-12 enrollment, pre-K, and total enrollment, total years of that superintendent's experience in that current district, total years as a superintendent in the current district, whether they have a PhD or EDD, the 2025 base salary, then health insurance, how it's handled, and the deductible amount, life insurance provided by the district, disability insurance, and that might be provided by the district, or that might be an option to buy, or they don't provide, vacation, what the superintendent has annually, and then also what they're able to accrue over time. Then the same with sick, what they have annually, and then what they're able to accumulate in sick days over time. Whether the district, and this when we start to get into really unique pieces per contract, whether the district pays for association dues, whether they provide a stipend for cell phone, require additional travel, whether it's just covering mileage or whether there's a stipend within the contract, a residency requirement, and includes a reference from one of the school districts where they provide residency is required, but they also provide a stipend for moving, whether there's a payment for retirement beyond the district's contribution for NPERS, bereavement leave, personal days, and then along with the Superintendent Transparency Act that requires the contract to be posted, there's also a Schedule D that's included, and in that Schedule D, it has the district's estimated contractual cost for that year. And so this is for the 25-26 year if that Schedule D was available online. So those are the columns across the top. We tried to get as much detail as we could. Across the bottom, there's a couple codes. Whether it's an asterisk or the pound sign or hashtag, that indicates whether on vacation leave that's accrued or sick leave that's accrued at the time of separation, whether there's a payout, and whether that payout is per diem or it's some limited payout per policy, because that makes a big difference in the payout upon separation. Then PBD, it means something's paid for by the district. PBS means it's offered to the superintendent as a benefit, but the superintendent has to pay for it. And finally, one school district has a performance bonus based on measurable outcomes of 1.25 that adds to the base salary, and that's beyond normal growth in the base salary that might be year to year. So there's two ways that base salary can grow. Lots of information. There's one sheet that includes, it's a little bit smaller document, and this includes all the data that was on the previous packet of salary schedule. We just pulled out the districts we thought would be most comparable to Norfolk and put them all in one sheet. Happy to answer any questions about how to read the form, and then after you've had a chance to dig into it, happy to answer questions, or we can talk about it again when we come back in December.
What was TSA again?
Which one?
The TSA, what did you say that meant?
Tax sheltered annuity. So that, so for instance, in Columbus, when you're looking at retirement beyond district NPERS, there's an additional 15,000 that's being placed in a tax sheltered annuity annually.
How does Kearney do the 46K deferred comp?
Sorry, I didn't put the details here. I can look up and get that answer of how that's in their contract.
Just different, I didn't know.
Mhm.
And one other thing to point out, just that John had put your most recent permanent superintendent.
I had a cut and paste error under Norfolk
Yeah.
between previous superintendent and
then
Mr. McCollister.
Mr. Mack, yep. And just, I had told him on the way here, we were kind of chatting about it, and that she did have her doctorate, which is not marked correctly there, but.
And the years experience, I went back and looked and I had just cut and pasted
Yeah.
those rows of columns together. Sorry about that, and I'll get that updated.
So, but yeah, a lot of information, and I know you requested some additional information, and this is as much as he could dig out of those contracts, so that was public.
Thank you. That was a lot of work.
Okay, so that's where we're at. And so in summary, I want to first thank Callan, has been a big help with a lot of different things. So thank you, Callan, and to Chuck Hughes helping out with some things, and Dr. Neal doing all this work, and Dr. Goebbels with all your work on the questions. So thank you. This is a team effort, and obviously that's showing. So in summary of what we need to do now is the negotiations team will talk about the staff. Once you get those names, if you could get them to me, and I'll get email addresses and send an initial email to invite these folks to help with the process, make sure that they're available on the correct date, and all of that good stuff. The interview questions, I'll work with Dr. Goebbels to prioritize. I'll get the finalists together, email it to you. We can work on prioritizing that. And then if you would like me to come back, John's not available on the date of your December meeting because he's meeting with another district, but I left myself open in case you need me to come here. I don't know that we need to, but if you want me to, I will. And so we can just kind of leave that a little bit open. There's not a whole lot else that needs to be done. I can email you the data from the surveys that we talked about. But other than just reassuring you on how many applicants you have at that point, it's up to you. If I don't know that there's any more planning stuff that we necessarily need to do.
Maybe just a update email in December. Let us know how many applicants. Remind me, when's the closing date?
Not till January 6th.
Yeah.
So you have 4 right now, applications.
Yeah, maybe just a December update. Here's where we're at with things.
That's fine. I'll just leave the date open too, and if I feel like, gosh, maybe we should just touch base in person, I'll buzz up here. It's not that big of a deal, but for right now, we'll maybe plan on not having me attend that, and then we'll just keep moving forward on things. I assume some of you will be at state conference, so I'll be there. We're stuffing 1,024 badges on Thursday, so that's a good time for our office. So anyway, but if you need something, we'll be sending the emails out. If you do look at the interview questions and say, gosh, maybe we are missing the boat on this topic we should have a question on, let me know. And we'll just continue to flesh those out. And other than that, that's all we had for you tonight. Is there anything I'm forgetting, Dr. Neal?
Second regular monthly meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for Monday, November 24th at noon. The following regular meeting of Board of Education will be held on Monday, December 8th at 5:30 p.m. All components of these meetings will be held at the MPS Central Administration offices and will be open to the public unless a closed session is needed in order to protect the interests of the district or the reputation of an individual. Meeting adjourned at 8:17.